Microsoft SharePoint has taken the enterprise by storm. A staggering number of corporations today are using SharePoint as their collaborative and information backbone. A tremendous amount of information is being stored within SharePoint lists. As such, it's becoming more and more important to be able to quickly and easily extract the data in those lists and bring it into other platforms for analysis, reporting, and storage. SQL Server Integration Services, or SSIS, seems like the ideal tool for moving and transforming this type of data around, but accessing data in SharePoint lists is not a trivial task. Unless, of course, you have Task Factory. Task Factory is a suite of SSIS components from Pragmatic Works. In this video, we'll look at the SharePoint Source component. Here I have a SharePoint list called Top BIDN Bloggers. You can see on the left I've got the name of the blogger, and on the right I've got the URL to their blog within BIDN. If you're not familiar with BIDN, you should be. BIDN stands for the Business Intelligence Developer Network, and while it's hosted by Pragmatic Works, it is actually a collaboration of BI developers from across the world. These developers work for many different corporations, but come together to provide you the latest information, articles, forums, blogs, and so forth. Here you can see the list of blogs and the top blog contributors. I've taken these and put them into my SharePoint list. Once again, you'll see the name of the blogger on the left and their URL. Now what I want to be able to do is read this in and do some processing with it. For that, I'm going to use SQL Server Integration Services. Here I've got an SSIS package, and I've only got one thing on it right now, a data flow task. When I open the data flow task, you can see there's nothing inside. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to get my SharePoint source out of Task Factory and drop it here on the display. And we'll open it up a little bit, and let's go ahead and edit it. Okay, the first thing we need to do is set up a connection to our SharePoint site. So I'm going to come here, and under my Select Connection Manager, I'm going to select Create New SharePoint Connection. And in the server URL, I'm going to paste in the name of my server, and I'm going to enter my username, and I'm also going to put in the domain name. And my password, and we'll test the connection. And our connection succeeded, so we know we have good information. Click OK. The next thing we need to do is tell it which list our data is in. So I hit the drop down. I'm going to scroll down to Top BIDM Bloggers. And there it is. And now I can pick a view if I want. There's only one view here, all items, so that's what we'll take. And I can come down here and preview the data. And there it is. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I now have access to all of the data within that SharePoint list. Let's show you by putting in a terminator destination. Place it here. Line it up a little bit, and let's connect them. Now, a terminator destination, in case you're not familiar with it, is just a convenient endpoint within Task Factory, and it just acts kind of like a dead end so that you can do something like this. We're going to come in here and put a data viewer, and we'll click to add. And over here, we're going to use the grid, and rather than taking all of them, I'm going to first pick the most important ones. So we're going to go title, and URL, and modified, and created, and then we'll just put all the rest of them down on the bottom. Now, in case you're wondering why we're using title here, title is actually the blogger name. For purposes of the display, I actually went in and edited the SharePoint list and changed the default name of title to blogger. So that's why you saw blogger show up when we looked at it within the SharePoint view. However, behind the scenes, the column name is still title. So that's what we're going to have to reference it back here. So we're going to click OK. And we'll click OK. And we'll save our work. And then we'll go run it. Okay, here's our information, and you can see here I've got the title, or the blogger as we've named it within SharePoint, and then I've got a column called URL, which is the URL to their blog. Now you'll notice if I expand the URL, I actually have it repeated twice. To the left of the comma, SharePoint stores the actual URL itself. To the right of the comma, it displays the descriptive text you've put there for the URL. Now in this particular example, I've used the same name on both sides, but over here on the right, I could have placed anything I wanted to. The important thing is, to the left of the comma, it has to be a valid URL. A couple other columns to point out. Let's look here and we see the modified date and the created date. Now you can see how important these could be in some scenarios, knowing the last time this particular row in a list was modified or created. Then there are some other columns that SharePoint uses behind the scenes for its internal information. For example, the ID being the ID of the item, its content type, who the author was, and so forth. And there you go. We've now accessed a SharePoint list, and we've used it to bring, in this case, 10 rows into SSIS. From here, we could do anything we want to with it, just like a normal SSIS package. We can analyze it, we can perform conversions, transformations, and then we can put it to any kind of destination we want. So I hope you can see how easy it is to use the SharePoint source to grab information out of SharePoint and pull it into your system for doing analysis, reporting, and storage. To learn more about Task Factory, please visit us at pragmaticworks.com.